And I'm excited to say that Joseph Gordon-Levitt joins me now to talk about it. How are you?
Well, thanks. How are you? Thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure to have you. What were you working on when the pandemic hit?
I was in the middle of writing and directing and acting in this TV show for Apple called Mr. Corman that I'd been putting together for years. And we were 3 weeks in to our 3-month shooting schedule, and I was having the time of my life. And we had to shut down. And the last thing I'm going to do is complain about that, because it is the very definition of first world problems. But it was frustrating because I was loving it, and I can't wait to go back to it.
You know, you don't strike me as someone who takes downtime well.
Breaks. What makes you say that? Well, actually, it's kind of I did actually. I took a couple years off show business when I had kids. I have a 4 and a 2-year-old, and so I took some time away, and am just getting back into it, and going to be in a few movies that I acted in that are all coming out this year. I'm excited to sort of come back into the thing that I've been doing my whole life.
Sure, but I think even if you're home, looking after your youngsters, which is just so lovely, I also see you as someone who's probably in the nighttime scribbling down ideas, like someone who is creative a lot,
That's how you keep the demons at bay, man. That's otherwise,
Yeah.
that's what I have found. I mean, well, you mentioned hit record in your introduction. That's what hit record started as. Before it was, this community of people collaborating on all kinds of things. Before it was a platform, before it was a production company or a website or a show or anything. It was just a little thing that I would say to myself, sort of a rallying cry to be creative. And it is crucial to me, I have found in my life, and to staying sane and to staying happy and positive. I have to keep doing something creative. It doesn't have to be a job. I'm lucky I do get to do art for a living, but actually a lot of the creativity that provides me the most solace is stuff that I don't do for a living. Like, you see, there's drums back there. Like, I've never made any money as a musician. I just really love playing and recording music. And so this is the kind of thing that I do on Hit Record, is projects like this, just stuff that I love doing because I just really love getting into a creative process. It's how I find my flow state, and it's what makes me happy. And in particular, I really love doing that together with other people. I have a bit more trouble doing it all alone.
I think what I like about that is that so many people I know want to be creative, or they have a creative urge inside of them, but they think, okay, well, unless I'm going to sit down and write The Great Gatsby, or unless I'm going to sit down and write the White Album, it's not really worth doing. And a lot of people don't understand that just the sheer joy of making things is often enough.
I love how you put that, man. Yeah, there's a real premium in our culture right now on the finished product. And I guess there probably always has been throughout the ages. But if you go back in history, there was a thing called popular culture. And popular culture is different than what we now call pop culture. Popular culture meant music and stories and things like that of the people, popular, like by the people. When your uncle would bring out a guitar and play music, or when you'd sit around a campfire and tell stories, and is different than consuming professionally manufactured pop culture. And our human civilization has always had that. And just recently, in the very recent history, the last 150 years or whatever, pop culture has started to sort of unseat popular culture. And nowadays, if you want to hear music, you're going to listen to this highly produced, record that was made by, extreme professionals, most likely, instead of going down to the pub or whatever and singing a song with your buddies. And I think there's room for both. I love, high level artistry that pushes itself to the very limits of skills and excellence. But I also think there's something about, like you said, just the process itself of doing it.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter as much if, you know, a global audience will like it, or if you'll get a lot of views or a lot of followers or whatever. Like, just the joy of doing something creative is really valuable, and something I don't think we talk about quite enough nowadays.
That's so interesting you say that. I mean, this is my job, right? My job is to sit down and talk to people and about art and about, their process and about their lives and stuff like that. But every Sunday, I play in an Irish session. I've done it since I was 15 years old. I play Irish music in a pub in a corner with, accordions and fiddles and all that kind of stuff.
I
And
was
it's
gonna
not
say
a
your
gig,
accent
it's
doesn't
not
sound
amplified.
like more Irish.
Yeah, maybe so. I mean, the Newfoundland accent is very similar, right? And
Oh, is that
like,
okay? Cool.
yeah, it's the East Coast of Canada, Newfoundland accent. And I always think that like I'll never want to let that go because it's not a performance. It's never been recorded. It's just me and my buddy sitting in the corner playing tunes, and it fills a function for me, something other than this does. You know what I mean?
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. Well, yeah, like that's what music has always been for me. And I was in a privileged position throughout my life of, being an actor and being out there, and people would ask me like, well, do you want to like put out a record and stuff? And I don't know, maybe I could or should or will, but uh honestly, I've always sort of just gravitated towards like, no, I don't know if I want that, like to have my music be that. Um yeah, what we do on Hit Record, I mean, sometimes the stuff that we make on Hit Record does become larger scale productions, and like you mentioned, Create Together, that's being presented by YouTube Originals, or we're currently making music that's going to go into a big Ubisoft video game, or we've done partnerships with Samsung and Sony and Levi's and LG, and we made a TV show that won an Emmy, and that stuff's all really fun as well. But I think there's something so valuable about not worrying about the final results and just focusing on how good it feels to do it.
And I think that leads me to Create Together. Like this is a time when people are making art through the pandemic in some ways just to get through the pandemic. Tell me about why you wanted to hook these people up and help facilitate this.
Well, like I said, for me, being creative can be difficult alone. And when I started quarantining here at home, I knew that I had to stay creative and do something creative every day. But I can't just sit down and be like, now I will write, or now I will produce. Like, I feed off the energy of other people. I always have. I grew up on movie sets and things like that. So Hit Record is this community that I started years ago with my brother that's all about creative collaboration, where it's less about people just posting things that they've made on their own and more about people finding each other and collaborating and making things together. And in this moment, during this pandemic, with so many people feeling isolated, seeing how people are overcoming that isolation through making things together, that just felt really uplifting, because the interactions you get when you're collaborating with someone are very different than the interactions you get when you're just kind of chatting with someone online, because you have a common goal and you're working towards accomplishing something, and it's vulnerable and nuanced, and it's a creative process. You're collaborators. And so I think nowadays, with so many folks at home, we go online because we want that human connection, but we want something a bit more substantial than just quick disposable, chats or chatter or whatever happens on social media. And so I think a lot of people were finding that by making things together, making short films or songs or short documentaries or animations or stories. And I just saw what was happening and said, this should be a show. We should be documenting this process of what's going on in our community right now. And we pitched the TV show. It all turned around very quickly. TV shows usually take forever to, get all together. This one happened real quick. And, the first one just came out, and the second one comes out this Monday. And it's not even done yet. We're still finishing it.
tell me an example of a collaboration that came out of this pandemic that you found particularly remarkable or inspiring or noticeable.
Yeah, sure. Well, there's a bunch, but like one that I've really loved is this short documentary project about how not everybody is getting to stay at home during the pandemic. And it started off with this piece of writing uh, written by this working mom in Oklahoma. Her name's Morgan, and she has to work. She supports her kids, and she's, her job is considered essential. And um, there were confirmed cases of COVID-19 in her workplace. And so she wrote just this very unfiltered, raw piece of writing expressing her anxiety and fear and frustration about having to go to work and feeling unsafe, and in particular feeling like, there's so much advice coming my way from people who are saying, hey, you have to stay at home. um, but people don't always realize what a luxury it is to stay at home. And she was saying, I can't stay at home, and so don't tell me that I should. And that really struck me because, if I'm honest, I hadn't really focused on that perspective before. I'm lucky enough that I am getting to stay home.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
this sparked this whole project where lots of different people were contributing their stories and their experiences through writing or voice acting or videos, drawing. We made some music together, and we're putting it all together. And you just get this variety of some people who are having to leave the house, some people who feel cooped up in their house. And it's nice to get, people with such different experiences collaborating and all working towards a common goal.
I feel like you have a, a joy, or you have an affinity for sort of people who are starting out, people who are sort of like raw creatives. And I find it interesting because it was something I was going to ask you about, because I was thinking about 500 Days of Summer and how Mark Webb, first-time filmmaker, when he made this, and I know your new film 7500, which is at the Amazon in June, the director is also a first-time filmmaker. Are you attracted to people who are starting out like that?
Yeah, sure. Ryan Johnson is another example. Ryan Johnson, his first movie, Brick, I was in that, and now he's the guy that made Knives Out and The Last Jedi. And I love working with first-time filmmakers, and I love collaborating with people who are not established professional artists, but still have something burning inside them that they got to get out. That to me is really, really exciting. And Hollywood can be a pretty exclusive, and Hollywood can kind of chase its own tail a little bit, and I think the internet has made great strides in making media a more inclusive environment, in that, now you do have platforms like YouTube, which is a wonderful platform where anybody who's made something can post it and hopefully find an audience, but you still have to make the thing on your own. And I think that's actually a barrier that's really hard for a lot of people to overcome. And that's what we find on Hit Record is when you say to somebody, you don't have to do it alone. There's a community of people that are collaborating on a variety of projects. Jump in, help someone else finish their project. That's sometimes the best way to kind of jumpstart your own creativity, is say, like, what do you need? Oh, you need someone to draw that thing. I like to draw. Let me do that. I would never have thought to draw that before, but I will. And, or start your own project, but doing it together with other people, to me, that's where the internet is hopefully headed. To me, if you talk about the promise of connecting the whole world through technology, it's not just that everybody now has an individual platform where they can individually say, hey, world, here's what I have to say. Ideally, you get to a place where people are collaborating, are not just acting as individuals, but are able to come together and achieve things they might not be able to on their own.
So in conclusion, tell me something, like, or tell people watching this something, people who maybe have a sketchbook that they've been meaning to take out, or a guitar that they've been meaning to play. give me something to people who are feeling creative but don't know what to do.
Hmm. Okay, if you're feeling creative and you don't know what to do, get involved with some other people. That's what happens for me. Like, I always have that kind of creative impulse. I want to do something. I want to do something, but very rarely am I able to just self-start and start from zero and get creative and have a satisfying experience all by myself. Whereas if I check out other people, and this is what Hit Record is built to do, and this is why I, wanted it to do this, is because this works for me. If I can check out other people, see what they're up to, see what they need, see what they're working on, and jump in, it's like a shortcut to like get the creative juices flowing. And there's something really nice also about when you contribute to someone else's project, you're not just throwing your creativity out there into the void and saying like, hey, who wants to like me or comment on me? Or that can feel a little bit like a dead end, I think, unless you're one of the very few super popular, artists out there online. When you're contributing to someone else's project, you're not just throwing it out there. There's someone else on the other end who's looking for your contribution. And especially if you find projects that because some projects on Hit Record will get hundreds or thousands of contributions, but there's lots of projects with just a few. And I actually think those are great places to start. Be like, oh, this person is making their thing. They need somebody to do whatever it is you like to do. If you want to play the bass, you can find someone who's, got a beat and looking for a bassist or whatever. And there aren't 1,000 people contributing to their project. They're looking for somebody, and they'll be so stoked if you play bass on their thing. And even if it's not perfect, and even if you are not the greatest bass player ever, they'll be so excited. And that's the kind of, human connection that comes out of collaboration. And that's why we made Hit Record, and why we continue to do it, and why I continue to do it. And I've been doing it for years now. It never gets old for me. I still just love it. And I find that it works for exactly what you're talking about. If you're feeling creative and you don't know what to do, collaborate with some other people.
It's very inspiring talking to you. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, man. That's really nice of you. It's great talking to you.